Ready, Ryan? All right, so welcome to the Tuesday, February 13th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, and I'll start with the roll call on the left.
Paul Peterson, Frank Fisher,
Sherman Hill.
John Lard,
Carla Destardens.
Lou Sawyer,
Raj Shivick.
Ryan Bray.
Sonia Chapman.
Okay, and I'll appoint Grant Kershane for Lindsay Jocelyn. So we're going right into our public hearings. The first public hearing of BB Company requesting 3-lot re-subdivision will not be open tonight because proper notification was not given to all property owners within 150 feet. So the first public hearing will not be open tonight. So that will be continued into March. So we're going on to item B, C 2018-1278 of Moosup River Estates requesting a special permit to construct a total of 40 single-family active adult housing units on property located on Ward Ave, Moosup, map 23, block 94C, lot 12, RA 60 zoning district.
RA 60, that's what it goes right next to our house.
Just use that. Convenient spot so other people can see it. For the record, my name is Norm Tebow, Killingley Engineering Associates. I'm here representing Moosup River Estates this evening. And what we are here for essentially is, I know Carla, you said there are 40 units. There are a total of 40 units here. Previously, we were before this commission with 30 units and a commercial development on the uppermost higher elevation portion of the site, which was the northernmost portion of the site. What we did is came back to this commission. We got a zone change. We changed that commercial property to residential. What the developers are proposing now is instead of a large commercial building to construct 10 additional single-family residences. These residences will be active adult housing. The lower or southern portion of the site has the 30 units that were previously built. So if you turn to sheet 2 of the plans, you can see those. Those particular units, we originally were before you. We had duplexes here. We modified that to construct single family in lieu of duplexes, only because the owners of the property have found in working with other projects similar to this that single family units are much more attractive to people than duplexes. So that's the reason why we are here. First of all, just to, and mostly because of the moving that commercial property that was located in the northern part of the site, and now turning it into a residential. We have three homes that will be along the frontage of the main access drive that was previously approved. A good portion of that driveway has already been installed as part of the previous application, and we're proposing this little loop road to put 6 more single-family homes there. So Lou did have a couple of comments on the plans that he forwarded to me. Number one was the original application for the elderly housing. The applicant submitted a sample restrictive covenant regarding exclusive occupancy per the zoning regs and a statement of need for the project. I assume that this has not changed. No, it has not changed. We submit to you that we'd like to make that part of the record of this hearing as well. Number two, provide a 25-foot wide planted buffer along that portion of Ward Ave, watering units 31 to 40. That's along this area here. You can see we did provide a pretty significant buffer there, showing numerous plantings, some evergreens, some deciduous trees, low growing, high growing, just a good mix of vegetation there to provide some screening from Ward Ave. There is also an existing tree line there. The trees that are in better condition will be kept. there, and there is some invasive vegetation that will be removed along there as well. Provide the buildable land calculations and impervious surface calculations. That's right on the cover sheet of the plans. Well, the impervious is on the cover sheet. The lot coverage is 30% max. We've got.
That's on the revised plans, right?
That's on the revised
Okay.
plans, correct.
It's not on the plan.
Okay, that's on the revised plans that I handed to Lou. So that is on the cover sheet of the plans. We are proposing 17.4% impervious coverage, which includes the buildings, so it's the buildings and the pavement. The next one, note or show on the plans, a 4-foot wide concrete sidewalk will be provided from building entrances to the individual driveways. These plans, the modified plans, do show that sidewalk going from the front door to the driveways. Also, note that the building height shall not exceed 30 feet. Once again, that's on the cover sheet, right in the table of zoning requirements. Provide building renderings and floor plans for the proposed units. If you flip to the last 2 pages of these plans, I can show you a typical unit. So there will be various sized units in this development. The owners are proposed to offer a selection. This actually is the biggest unit that is that could be built there. I believe it's 41 feet wide. All of the other units, I believe there are 3 other styles. All of them successively smaller in footprint than this one here. But we wanted to show you, what the biggest unit would be that could potentially be built on these sites. Also provide the proof of the certified mailings. I believe those have already been delivered to Lou. Approval should be subject to the conditions of application 2015-0696, which we concur with. And lastly, the E&S bond that we put together. Erosion and sedimentation control, probable construction costs. We've got a total of 4,150 linear feet of silt fence at $3 a foot. That's $12,450. Construction entrance, $1,000 for a construction entrance. Seed mix for slopes, that's the spread, 2,000 square yards at $1.50 per square yard. And then vegetation establishment for the basin. We've selected a seed mix that's going to be suitable for the basin that would survive during inundated conditions. That particular seed mix goes for about $65 a pound. We need at 1,250 square feet per pound and 22,500 square feet total. That'd be $1,170 for the seed cost for that basin. So the total erosion and sedimentation control bond is $17,620.
Thank you.
I think the last thing too that we noted, if you look on the buildable land calculations on sheet 3, by the amount of land that we have, we could actually qualify for up to 55 units. However, based on the spacing that's required between these units, for the single ones and the regulated areas and so forth, we are proposing a total of 40 and not the 55 that could potentially be built here based upon the amount of usable land that we have. That's right up here. Other than that, nothing really too different than what was proposed down in the southern portion of the site. Other than this is a little higher elevation, it does drop down to the lower units that were previously approved These other 10 units that we're here before you with this evening will be up a little bit higher. The units down at the bottoms will be built on slabs, indoor crawl spaces, due to the floodplain and the flood elevations there. We do have to raise those slightly. The upper units, those other 10, could be built with full basements. One of the nice things about this is that this is, we do have a flood study in the Hoosick River here, so we have a very well-defined flood, 100-year flood line throughout the site that we're able to tie into. So there's absolutely no question that we're on the mark here.
So this is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience who has a comment or question about this application, if you could come to the front, state your name, and ask your question or make your comment.
Sioux Falls Central Village, how many phases does this project have?
It'll be most likely 2 phases.
Okay, and if everybody has 2 cars, let's say in this grouping, that's 80 cars that are going to be coming and going from this project. The traffic, you must have done something with the state with the traffic.
Yes, we do. We do have a DOT approval here. It is a state road, and actually, the Warren Avenue is actually considered a low-volume state road. One of the reasons why the commercial project was abandoned here was because there wasn't enough traffic to support a commercial property here.
Now, how many roads are coming out of this?
Just a single.
One?
Yep.
Okay.
Single.
Are you coming up a hill to come up?
No, it's,
Level with Route 14?
yeah, we're going to be level. We're going to be coming out level with Route 14, and then just gradually dropping down as we enter the site.
So for emergency purposes, it's just one access out?
One access. It's a 24-foot wide road. We do have a loop. We do have loop system within the road itself. The previous development, we did have a secondary egress through an existing road that exists there. And that was substantially for our truck traffic, because what we were proposing was a commercial project there. We were expecting that there would be tractor trailers and so forth. So there was a dedicated truck egress from the site. The state is happy with the single curb cut. And one of the benefits of not constructing that second curb cut too is that we removed a lot of activity that was really close to the wetlands on the site as well.
Is it an income-based property? I mean, you pay according to your income?
I don't believe so.
So what's the price range?
I don't know.
I believe the Turnpike buyer said they're starting at about $240,000, and going up from there.
Okay.
And it's 55 and over?
Correct.
All right, I'm Tim Boyd at 104 Plainfield Road. I live like right across from the river, from the lower portion that I guess that's what you're talking about, the part right next to the river. It's hard to see me back here.
You can certainly come up.
I can't go up in that room.
Right here.
What are you doing? You said you're going to be on slabs. Now, what are you doing for flood mitigation at this area?
Well, we don't have to do any flood mitigation. in this
What
area.
happens when the whole thing goes underwater?
And the 100-year flood line is right here.
Well, that's quite amazing, because I lived 35 years there and watched that field go completely underwater twice. So anybody who's lived in Moosup long enough has seen the carpet grounds, as they're referred to up in Moosup, go underwater. I mean, it looked like from the back of my house, that the river isn't next to my house anymore, it's up in the middle of that cornfield. So I don't know, where people get the idea, 100 years or whatever. I seen it go under twice in that length of time. I don't know if everybody remember back the time we came across by command. They came right across by command, dug that big gully through there. That whole field went right under during that. I don't know what year that was.
Well, the reason why that happened is because the dam was breached down on the corner up Route 14. That dam, the top of that dam came off during a big storm. A tree reached the top of it. It knocked 4 feet off the top of that dam, and that's what flooded the command
Well,
post.
they did it in 1982. I moved in right around that time, and the thing went under. So I've seen that field go under twice. So my question is, when it goes over again, under again, what happens is, Is the town, who's gonna pick up the bill for all these houses? How's that gonna work? These low houses, they're gonna get flooded. They're gonna get flooded.
Well, these
Everybody
are-
says, no, no, no,
We
not
use,
floodplain,
we
no
can only use the
problem.
information that we have. This is
Well, I'm
information
giving
that's
you new
provided by
information
FEMA.
from a
Okay.
guy who stood right there and looked at that river for 35 years. It's gone out his wife. I'm sure you can get other people in Moosa to back me up. I'm not the only one. But
If I could say something here, they have no choice except to use the existing flood insurance rate mapping that we have downstairs as prepared by FEMA. That's the best available information there is today. They are in accordance with that information.
no, I'm just saying, you're building in an area, those lower ones, that are going to get flooded. They're going to get flooded. But that, that bit of information doesn't seem to be bothering everybody.
Well,
Well, somebody down the
like I
road's
said,
gonna have a house down there, a nice house, and they're gonna get water.
These houses will all be slightly elevated above the regular grade that's out there right now. No basements. We have to follow the flood insurance requirements. We have to raise the mechanicals, raise the living areas above what is defined as the 100-year flood elevation in this area.
So that's following the FEMA flood insurance program. So to kind of point to his question, he's asking what would happen if the home's flooded. They would go through the flood insurance program of FEMA.
Correct. Yeah.
I think that
It
was,
just doesn't seem right that we're approving a project that's gonna be in an area that is going to flood.
That portion is previously approved. I'm not going to go into that
The
portion.
state said it's not gonna flood, okay, the state says a lot of things, that doesn't mean it's not gonna flood.
Well, it's-
I'm
okay.
just
And
here-
I don't think
I
we're
owe it
gonna
to
serve the
people that
debate
buy them houses
tonight,
To
so.
stand here and tell you, I've
Thank-
seen it go under twice, and other people in town who lived in Moosa for a long time, I've seen it.
Thank you, thank you. Yep.
Does that mean that everyone that buys a house there is going to have to purchase the flood insurance?
That's up to the mortgage lender.
It's up to the lender.
Is there anyone else in the audience with a comment or question regarding this application? Yep.
I have a question. This ad came on the paper last Friday, and it's, advertising this whole project. Even though it's not approved yet, it's okay.
Well,
Previously, 30 units were approved.
30, but not, they're
Correct.
advertising 40 right now. in this ad.
I can see that.
well, that's an error. 30 units have been approved, and they can advertise for 30.
They're advertising for 40.
Just-
We actually saw the same thing with Turnpike Fire as I got
Okay.
Okay, that being said, it's a 55 and older community, and how is this going to be enforced down the line? I saw what happened to Colonial Woods years ago. I think that was the same idea.
Actually, it wasn't. Colonial Woods was completely different. It was not elderly housing, or it was basically age restricted. You couldn't have anybody living there under 21 years old.
Okay.
Then the state changed the regulations, and that's how that changed. With this here, our regulations require that they file a declaration of covenants or something like that, basically stating that the only people living in there are 55 or older, or I believe there's some requirements for handicap accessibility.
Handicap
If you're younger
accessible,
than that.
and for children or, someone under 18, there's limited time. I don't know what the exact is. It's like 6 weeks a year where they're allowed to stay there or so. Like, if there's a grandparent living there, they wanted a grandchild to come, they're allowed to stay there for a certain amount of time, but they can't reside there. They can't use that as their primary residence. And that is actually governed by statute through the state.
How can that be enforced, not like 5 years from now, 10 years from now? How can that be enforced?
Well, it's all under the Common Interest Ownership Act and they're registered. Basically, every unit that's registered and every person that goes and lives there, it basically goes into the Common Interest Act. And each of these people, anyone who does live there, they have to define who will be there, what their ownership is, and so forth. Like I said, it's all governed, it's all statutorily governed by the state.
And my last comment, is there going to be any open space to the side? Because it says right here, in mature natural setting and nature trails. Is there going to be any kind of?
Yeah, all around the perimeter of the site, around the perimeter and along the river so they're proposing walking trails along there. Yes.
Okay, no further questions?
What percentage of the site would you say is not disturbed or developed?
Not disturbed or developed. We've got, we have 11 acres of developable land. I'm trying to do some quick math here. We've got 1.2 million square feet divided by 40,005.
So
Approximate, we got 40 to 50% is going to be developed. That's the quick numbers.
That includes areas between houses.
Correct, that does.
any other comments or questions?
Right.
Yes.
Is this an association-based, you have to have an association, you have to have, let's see, president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary?
That is correct.
Okay, I just went through this in Florida with condo properties, and what happens is it starts off where everybody's following the rules, and then suddenly there's like you have to get special permission to have someone stay longer than what is that's in the documents. People abuse it. Are these people going to be responsible for paying a maintenance fee for taking care of the grounds?
Yes, they are.
See, there's that is a really important component, that everybody that buys in there has to read, you have to have them sign off on the documents and read it, because it gets ridiculous. Then the state will eventually pass more rules that regulate
The
it.
developers of this project are currently developing a project in Killingley, 142 units. They've built over 70 of them so far. They can't build them fast enough. They're doing very well. It's a very experienced
Right, I'm not
organization.
challenging that. I'm talking about the people that are eventually going to live there and how the abuses start. That you end up getting, you think it's, what about, is it pet-free or what? What's the pet?
I don't know.
Okay, I'm just saying that the developers, the owners, really need to educate the people that will be going into this complex, really, because there are lawsuits that follow, okay? That's, it is gonna happen, so, and you're part of it, so is the owner here, are the owners here?
One of the owners is here.
Yeah, please educate the people that are
Hold on a
buying.
second, if you could just state his
I'm the
name.
owner, Ernie Palolo, I'm the owner. This condo docks is about that thick. It's what you can do and not do. It's no different than any other condo association that's out there. That's what we pretty much followed and copied. I am doing Briarwoods and Killingley right now. And, I did this project because I can't build them fast enough. There's that many 55 and older people, and this is what they're looking for. They don't want to mow lawns, they don't want to take snow plowing.
Right,
So this is what we come up with. I've owned this field for 3 years, I would say. We did tons of study about the floodplain. For your information, everybody says it's flooded. I understand, this is the way you read it, but we did barrel testing everywhere. I mean, within 50 feet, all over the place. And if water ever went there, more than 72 hours, it would leave a stain. There's no sign of water ever been all through those fields, except for the perimeter of the edges. I did boring tests, 5 feet to water table, 5 to 6 feet to water table. It's pure gravel, just like the top piece that you can drive by and clearly see. It's all gravel. We're going by a floodplain study. I don't know. I know some people said, there's a farmer that's been there for like 40 years. He says, there's never been anything where you're putting these houses. There's around the edges, there was at one time when the dam broke. He says, but listen to me, I've been putting it's a hard ground, it's bony gravel. He says, listen to me, my tractor's never got stuck, it never sinks in the loam, which is a lot of loam, but it's just a good sturdy field. And we plan on putting, it's a 4-foot, it's not a slab. You got a 4-foot foundation for frost, and it's all radiant heat flooring on these homes, just to keep it that much more, what, 2 feet more
About 2 feet,
above.
yeah.
So we're above, the whole field is 5 feet above the flood anyways. Then we're gonna go 2 more feet. So we don't have, and no one will have to have flood insurance. That's guaranteed.
Because we're outside, that's the, as I was saying, one of the nice things about this site is that there is a published flood study. FEMA has actually done a flood study of the Moosic River in this area. So they have published elevations here that we're able to tie into and show on the plans. It's not so easy a lot of times where you've got sort of a broad brush painting of a flood zone on a FEMA map, and they haven't done a detailed study of it. And you have to go out there and do the comps and demonstrate to FEMA that you don't have a floodplain or a flood-prone area. This particular site, all our plans, all the way down the Moosic River, you know, as it goes down gradient, as it flows, the 100-year flood elevation changes, as it goes down gradient. It's published, it's on the plans, and that's what we have to follow.
Somebody asked about access land. That's a 5-acre field right there that's just gonna stay natural. We designed it for people who want to have golf carts to just use. There's a ton of spots that kids can drive on and enjoy the river. It really is a nice piece. And the road is open, it's safe to drive in there, it's all gravel, all the roads are in. Please, do yourself, just go down there just to see. You will change your opinion of it. It's a beautiful piece of land. The town wanted to purchase it. What is it? Conservation wanted to buy it. It is in the heart of Moosup, but it is absolutely beautiful.
I got another question.
Yep.
Ernie, you just mentioned that it's going to be open space.
Yeah, that whole 5-acre field is all.
Is this,
No
is this
building.
the lower?
This is the upper portion here.
I think this is right here. Okay, this is the upper.
If you could just speak a little bit louder for the record, please.
Okay, sorry. So this is the upper piece that's being rezoned?
Correct. It's already been rezoned.
Rezoned, and that you're adding your houses here. Now, the open space that he's talking about, he's gonna save this part around the river?
Correct.
Okay, I know what you're talking about now. That is a nice spot. I didn't know that.
Anyone else from the audience with a comment or question on this application? Comments and questions from board members?
Your ground elevation, this new portion of the roughly 13 feet above the lower section.
A little bit louder, Sean.
I'm asking about the height difference between the lower and the upper portions.
It's anywhere from 8 to 10 feet.
Okay?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
This section on the road here that's within the plan, is that section of the road being elevated above the floodplain?
Yes, it is. Yes, and one of the reasons why, and we discussed this actually with the first application, we have a large stormwater water quality treatment basin shown in this section of the plan here. One of the reasons why it was so big is the filling in that area, because we did raise it above the flood. We had some filling within the flood zone. So we had to compensate for that and excavate out this area so that we would not diminish the flood storage capacity of the property as a whole.
Any other comments or questions from audience members? Comments or questions from staff or committee? Okay, hearing no other comments or questions, I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor of closing the public hearing? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, public hearing is closed. Moving on to item C, Z 2018-1279 of Strategic Commercial Realty, Inc., requesting a special permit for a gravel excavation on property located on Jackson Road, Central Village, map 7, block 53A, lots 41, 43, and 42, map 8, block 53A, lots 134 and 147, RA 60 zoning district.
For the record, my name is David Helm, a professional engineer and land surveyor with Provost and Rivero. Here this evening on behalf of Commercial Realty. This is overall site map, and I put an aerial photo just so you can kind of get an idea of where the site is located, what exists out there now, how it ties into surrounding neighborhood.
Do you have any extra ones?
One more if anybody wants it. So I'd like to start by going over a little bit of the history of this site, some previous approval the town has given. I'm going to just move this so it faces the audience a little more because the commission has plans that they can look at. And if particular things you want me to point out, just let me know and spin it around a little bit. So this is a 475-acre site, which was initially permitted by this commission back in 2005. We came in and we sought a special permit for the excavation of 49.2 acres in the westerly part of the site. And you can see on that aerial photo there where there's an existing excavation operation going on. We're basically going to be expanding from that, other parts of the site. I'm going to flip to sheet 4. Plans, which is that same map without the aerial photo. So this area back here is called out as existing excavation. Again, that was 49.2 acres, which was approved back in 2005. Your regulations require a renewal application every 5 years. We've been in here with 2 renewal applications in 2010 and 2015. Which has provided opportunities for new public hearings, new public input, new review by the commission. In addition to that, your planning department staff makes regular visits to the site to make sure that they're in compliance with their permit, to make sure that they have adequate bonding in place for whatever area they've got open and working. And we're at the point right now where approximately 80% of that initial approved area has been excavated in accordance with the plans. So we're here, rather than just doing another piece of the property, we decided it was in everybody's best interest to just get a permit for the entire property for a number of reasons. You guys can see what the overall plan is for this piece. This is a long-term project. Obviously, as I mentioned, we started in 2005 with the excavation, and we're just about done with 40 acres of it on a 475-acre site. So no doubt you will be seeing us again for multiple renewals. One thing that this commission may or may not be aware of is that in 2014, O&G Industries, who is the owner of this property, received a permit which covers the entire site from the Army Corps of Engineers. That was the culmination of approximately 15 years of efforts with studies and monitoring and collaboration with various experts, the Connecticut Deep and the Army Corps of Engineers, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, EPA, to come up with best management practices and the best ways to operate and maintain the site. So that permit, again, covers the entire 475 acres. It covers the phasing of the excavation. It covers site restoration measures. It covers other monitoring and study sort of work that has to be done as they get into certain areas. So that's a very important thing to keep in mind because we are asking this commission to give some consideration to some of those items as well. and a copy of that Army Corps approval and attachments to it that describe all these things was submitted with the application. So you do have that available for your review if you haven't seen it yet. A little bit about that Army Corps permit. It requires, well, it doesn't necessarily require, but O&D has voluntarily given substantial wetland buffers because of some of the things that live or potentially live in those wetlands and the sort of habitat they provide. And it's to the point where what we're proposing for the excavation site-wide does not even require an inland wetlands permit from the town of Plainfield. The buffers in general are far and away larger than what the town would typically require from wetlands. So we have not filed an inland wetlands application, nor do we need to be able to apply for a special permit. As I mentioned, the Army Corps permit does include extensive requirements for restoration of the site and the use of it. You have sheets 1 and 2 in small versions, and there's one large one. It's a 3-foot by 4-foot sheet, so you can roll it out if you want to. But that basically gives you sort of a master planning look at what was approved by the Army Corps of Engineers for the ultimate reuse and reclamation of this site. There's several important elements that aren't necessarily fixed at a certain point. They're going to be ultimately determined by the character of the material that's encountered and the grades that the operator can achieve based on those materials. But certain aspects that the Corps would like to see on the site would be some extensive grassland habitat that would be maintained as grassland rather than allowed to reforest. And that would also provide some successional habitat, which is kind of a shrinking resource in this area. We do have extensive reforestation, and you can see some blue areas in there in the middle of the site where we're going to be excavating. There's a desire to create both an open water pond of substantial size in addition to some constructed wetlands. Part of the core requirements is that in establishing those wetland habitats, we work with qualified experts to make sure that we're not causing problems for the existing wetland habitat around the perimeter of the site with regard to decoy habitat or anything like that. So, the wetland habitat in particular, we're not sure exactly where that's going to go. That's very dependent on the material and the conditions that are encountered during the excavation. Another important aspect of the core requirements is long-term stewardship and maintenance of whatever ultimately is done for reclamation. At this point, the thinking is that when this site is completed, it would probably be turned over to a land trust or some other suitable third party, which has the resources and the desire to do the maintenance that's required for something like a grassland habitat and to manage invasive species and things like that that are a substantial concern when you're restoring a gravel site. As I mentioned, that core permit was the culmination of almost 15 years of studies and investigations around this site. That included wetland species. We did do a long-term groundwater monitoring program, which included the installation of monitoring wells across the entire site and several off-site areas. A copy of that study was, again, submitted with the application. We do show groundwater contours throughout the entire excavation site, so you can see that we are maintaining appropriate cover where necessary with our final grades. There was an archaeological investigation done on this site, so we have a good handle on what resources are there and what needs to be done to protect things. And with that, I'll talk a little bit more about the current application that you actually have in front of you. Again, the entire site is 475 acres. We're proposing excavation over 234 of those acres, so a little bit less than 50% of the site is proposed to be disturbed. We're showing phasing on this overall plan, 7 phases proposed for excavation. Obviously, you can do the math and divide 234 acres by 7. They're not 5-acre phases as shown on here. With a 475-acre site, if we showed every little 5-acre phase, you'd have a 50-sheet set of plans just to show those lines. In keeping with the current practice at the site, the operator and the owner maintain bonding for whatever area that they have open. Again, the town planning staff makes regular inspections to make sure that they're in compliance with that. The operator has run a pretty tight ship there with regard to bonding and restoring areas as they're done excavating. So we're just going to continue to roll that practice over into this new application. There is under no circumstances going to be 234 acres of active gravel excavation going on at this site at once. Right now, I'm going to estimate that there's maybe 20 acres open. There's probably 15 acres that have been restored, and you're going to see that progression kind of continuing through the phasing on the site. It is, again, important to emphasize this is a continuation of an operation that's been in existence successfully with a minimum of problems for 13 years. There is no intention to increase or ramp up production because of this. We're simply running out of area that's already permitted, and we need to move into areas that require a new permit. So that's why we're here. Again, the owner and the initial permittee was O&G Industries. They own this entire property. They own several properties which abut it. The applicant is Strategic Commercial Realty, which is a corporate subsidiary of O&G Industries. They do business as Rawson Materials. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Rawson Materials. They've got another site across Route 14 from this property where they operate as well. As far as quantities proposed to come out of the site, obviously with such a large area, it's hard to determine every area where there may be unsuitable materials, but we did do a series over various years of probably 30 soil borings and installation of wells across this site. So we have a pretty good idea of the quality of materials in proposing the final grades. We'd be looking at a total, in addition to what's already been taken out, of 10.6 million cubic yards. Over the last 13 years, there's been approximately 3 million cubic yards removed. So assuming the same average market conditions, which is the sole driver of how fast this operation is going to take place, you're probably looking at a 30 to 40 year time span from today until the time this operation is complete. As far as how that's phased, in the southwest corner of the property is the existing excavation. From there, we're going to be moving south into a second phase of approximately 30 acres, and then just basically looping around and moving towards the north. This property does have frontage on Jackson Road. There's no intention to use that frontage for truck access or any other access to this site. When I reviewed this application with Lou, one question that he brought up was, is it possible to provide a larger buffer along Jackson Road? I proposed 100 feet. That seemed to be a good number, so we have no issue with revising our application if necessary to provide an undisturbed 100-foot buffer to Jackson Road. And again, if some of the residents live in that area, I understand the concern with truck traffic on Jackson Road. It's not really a
Could you
substantial
show us on the
highway.
map where Jackson Road is?
Jackson Road is right up at the very top.
Right at the top. So that's Plan 7?
Yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question because my house.
Hold on one moment. We just have to keep it orderly. Let
Okay.
him finish his
Okay.
presentation, and then I'll open the
Okay.
floor, and we also have some correspondence I need to read into the record, so we will get to you.
So again, in talking about the circulation on the site, truck traffic and things, Jackson Road is not proposed for any access to the site. We are going to have the undisturbed buffer there that will be maintained. And again, this is phase 7 of 7 of a project that might take 40 years to complete, which means you'll see us 8 times before then. So if something comes up, if there's issues that come up with the operation, that's 8 opportunities where the commission and the public have something to say about it. So initially, we're saying 100-foot buffer. If that needs to be increased for whatever reason in the future, there will be ample opportunity to evaluate that. As far as what happens with the material from this site, you're all probably aware that To the east, this is a railroad here, formerly Providence and Worcester, now Genesee and Wyoming. They have a spur line that comes into a processing facility on the eastern side of that main line track. All the material that's excavated from here goes across a private haul road, crosses the tracks into that processing facility. There is no sales to the public on the excavation site. There's no processing of material on the excavation site. It's all hauled to the processing facility, which is not the subject of this permit application. For informational purposes, it goes there, it's processed. I'm going to guess that maybe 90% of it leaves the site via rail. The rest may leave on trucks. If there are sales to the public, that's where they happen in that yard. But none of that happens back on this excavation site, and we're not asking for approval for any of that on the excavation site. So I think it's very safe to say that, again, since this is an expansion in area of an existing operation, there's no increase or change in production. There's really no truck traffic generated from this operation anyway. So it's safe to say that we're not having any impact on surrounding highways with regard to truck traffic or anything else as a result of the approval of this permit application. As far as our proposed hours of operation, they're in keeping with what the zoning regulations suggest, which would be 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, and 8 to 12 on Saturdays, with no Sunday or holiday operations. In my experience in being on that site, those hours are much more generous than how they actually operate. But that's what we proposed, this is what's suggested in the zoning regulations, and what was previously approved in 05, 2010, and 2015 in the renewals. Part of the reason that I gave you the aerial view of this site is so you can see what I'm going to tell you now, and that's that the majority of this proposed excavation will not be visible from highways or from abutting properties. You can see we've got substantial buffers. Certainly on the west, there's a large wetland corridor on the west, which provides a large buffer. Similarly, on the easterly side here, there's Horse Brook and large wetland corridors associated with that. There's small pockets of wetland that jut out into the site, and we're maintaining a corridor through there that's probably 600 to 800 feet wide between the property boundary and where they're actually going to be excavating. And that's all currently forested and would remain as a forest throughout the life of the project. The areas where we are getting close to adjacent properties would be over here on the north and west. Those adjacent properties, with the exception of, I think, 3 properties, are owned by ONG Industries. We're again the owner of the subject application site. Your regulations do require certain buffer to property lines, the only exception being if a property owner grants permission to an applicant to dig right up to a property line. Since ONG Industries is the owner of these adjacent properties and Strategic Commercial Realty is the applicant, ONG Industries has submitted a letter into the public hearing record, which I think was sent directly to Lou, giving the applicant permission to dig right up to those property lines. So that's kind of just a housekeeping issue for this particular site. So again, there's possibilities that we may encounter unforeseen subsurface conditions, most likely unsuitable material, fine sand, or something that's not marketable. We've got a pretty good idea of what the proposed grade is going to be like based on our extensive borings. We're providing cover to groundwater where necessary. We've got an idea of where we may be able to create open water habitat based on where groundwater is and what the conditions are. So there are going to be places where we're digging into the water. But in general, the grades have been proposed to protect wetland resources and to provide adequate buffers to adjacent properties. We don't anticipate any blasting on this site. This is not a stone quarry. Everything there is either gravel or sand that's processed to produce those aggregate materials. Now, typically, a set of excavation plans would include lots of restoration measures and narratives and verbiage about how that's done. Again, we've provided the Army Corps of Engineers approval, which covers most of that. And what we are asking this commission to do is just basically refer to that for site restoration. That's to some degree an ongoing thing with the Corps of Engineers. The site is being scrutinized and looked at by them and by DEEP to make sure that the restoration is being done properly. So I think you can feel comfortable that whoever is actually looking at this has some expertise in what they're doing to give you a level of comfort. But we are requesting that rather than coming up with a separate reclamation plan and having two things which might end up diverging in the future, we would like this commission to just refer to the Army Corps permit, which will cover the work on this site for the life of the site. And with regard to bonding, as I mentioned, we would just like to roll over the bonding that's in place for the current excavation into this new approval, should you see fit to approve the application.
Thank you, Dave. I have 2 letters to read into the record, and then you're next, sir. All right, from Kathleen Davis to the Town of Plainfield, Chairman Desjardins. This letter is regards to Z 2018-1279, the special permit for gravel excavation on property located on Jackson Road in Central Village, map 7, block 53A, lots 41, 43, and 42, map 8, block 53A, lots 134, 147, RA60 zoning districts. The approval of this application will cause detrimental effects to the character of our community, creating noise pollution, increased traffic, lower property values, and has the potential to cause harm to the wildlife in the neighborhood, turning our neighborhood into a dusty, noisy construction site. I urge the Planning and Zoning Commission to support the preservation of our neighborhood by voting no. Sincerely, Kathleen Davis. No applause, please. I live on 42 Jackson Road. I'm writing in anger a letter I received from you. I do not want a gravel bank on the other side of the street from me. No way. Thank you, Ernest Kutu, 42 Jackson Road, referencing Z 2018-1279, lot 41. I do not want a gravel bank. No way. Owls, turkeys, deer, and other animals are in these woods. Leave them alone. Oh, one more. Oh, okay. So what was just handed was information from the Plan of Conservation and Development about the groundwater goals, preventing contamination of existing groundwater resources, restoring contaminated resources to drinking water quality where feasible, preserving and protecting the aquifer areas within the town of Plainfield. Groundwater implementation. The most effective way to protect the town's groundwater resources is to limit or prohibit activities within the aquifer recharge zone that have potential to contaminate the aquifer. Therefore, the aquifer protection regulations should be maintained intact as they provide the greatest level of protection for these resources. And he was next, so we'll go ahead.
I believe my property, our property, is right at the corner on Jackson Road. I'm not sure if it's 42 or 43 on the map, but we're basically where it goes up
State your name for the record, sir.
Jeff Burns
Thank you.
for Brenda Miller. Our property line basically that dog legs up to Jackson Road, right there. The frontage there. Glasses on here. Jackson Road, 44. I believe we're at lot 44, which should put us right at that corner, top right corner. So if I come up and take a look at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And just speak loudly for the record, please.
Yes. Yep, matter of fact, yeah, this is would be our property. I believe we're the last one to the edge. Now, there's an abandoned old pit right behind our.
Correct, Lorraine Young's property.
Right. Now, there's probably maybe 100 yards at best between our property line and where that goes down. And how far are you guys planning to come up? Because we have a substantial hill going up our property to the very back portion of the lot, only 50-foot piece here.
So,
But it drops off. where-
since this survey was done, Lorraine Young's property has been purchased by O&E Industries. They're not proposing to do anything on that property as part of this application.
Okay. At all.
Not as part of this application. I'm sure eventually they will, but it might be years down the road. I don't know.
Okay. So you're still saying south?
Right.
South and east.
This property line here between what was Young's property and what's O&G's and the subject of this application is basically right at the tree line back here. There's a fence that starts somewhere back here that I think Young put up. It was here, that's basically following the property line.
Okay. I know, because there's a dirt road that comes out.
Yes.
That goes up there and where it falls to access to the existing excavation that's going on, it comes through, coming across.
That road to the existing excavation is way down.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to clarify on the phasing, so this is looking at 7 phases.
Correct.
And you're approximating 3 to 5 years per phase. So phase 7 wouldn't occur until you're talking approximately 30 years from now. And in that time, they would have to reapply for permits depending on if this commission approves or not, and whether it's approved as a 3-year, 5-year, but no special permit can be approved for more than 5 years at a time.
Right.
So you're looking at coming back
We'll probably be back here
every
minimum
3 to
5
5
times.
years. So phase 7 would not happen on this requested permit. So ordinarily, you would not be requesting phase 7, but because you did the Army Corps study, you're looking to dovetail them and have them match. Is
Yes.
that-
We had to prepare a site-wide phasing plan for the Army Corps of Engineers as part of the whole thing. That phasing is basically identical to what we're proposing here. So, yeah, we want to just cover all the bases with this permit application. And it gives you a basis for future renewals too, to see how things are progressing, and gives you a picture of what we're looking to do long-term.
So over the next 3 to 5 years, what you're looking at is phase 1, 2.
At most.
Thank you for the clarification. Go ahead.
Can you guarantee
And
us
could
that
you
our
state your
property
name,
will
sir, for the record, please?
On
Your name for the
Ernest
record.
Kitson.
Thank you.
Can you guarantee us that our property will not depreciate in value with a sandbank right across the street from us?
I'm not a real estate.
Can you guarantee that you will not pollute our wells